The Stage 2 playoffs have come and gone, and with it, we saw 8 teams battle for glory. Incredible moments were had, upsets were accomplished, and eventually, a dynasty fell. But while the Shock pushed their way to an eventual victory, there were 12 teams who were watching at home, who didn't get a ticket to the big dance. How did Stage 2 go for them? Who's got a shot at the playoffs in Stage 3, and who's already planning for Season 3? Let's take a look, shall we?
Defeat.
This was a weird stage for Atlanta. Defiant leaving the team to go back to streaming full-time definitely hurt, and the rumors that Dako was benched for behavioral issues, which I'll link in the description, didn't really help either. But it wasn't all bad. The players that the Reign acquired have a lot of potential and can genuinely develop into some super talented pieces. Babybay's mechanical skill has never been in question. It was more his decision-making that was shaky, and his experience on the Shock may have improved that. Meanwhile, FRD was not spectacular, like I think most fans would agree that they preferred Dako in, but his diva has held up on the Overwatch League stage so far, and I think he's a solid depth piece. Also, this stage it appeared that the Reign have committed to Dogman as their starting flex support, which I think is great. I haven't seen much of a difference between him and Urster on stage, and people with his energy are always welcome, and watching Bren cut his hair live was probably the funniest thing to happen all stage. Though with so many moving pieces, it makes a ton of sense that there would be a ton of growing pains. And there were, as this team ended up being the first to fall to the Valiant all season, as well as giving the Charge one of their 2 wins this season. These are the kind of games that this team will regret as the season playoff picture begins to form. The Reign were still able to get 3 wins this stage, one of which was against Justice, and the other 2... Wait, I'm sorry, this must be a mistake. Hey! It says that the Reign beat the Excelsior twice. They did? What? Did they have kryptonite in their jerseys or something?
Defeat.
The biggest thing for the Uprising to get used to this stage was the introduction of RCK to their roster. Transferred from the Fuel, RCK provided a lot of flexibility in the off-tank position that this team obviously wanted, but replacing what was a staple of the team in Note was not easy at all. Losses to teams like the Justice confirmed this, but they also beat the Gladiators in the same week, which is... I guess my point is that the Uprising are currently pretty inconsistent, but I expect for this to change once they've played together more. What I really like about the Uprising is that they've been trying to go against the GOATS meta recently, which I think is great. Zarya and Break are not Color Hex's and Blase's strong suits, so letting them play more heroes that they're better at, along with an already impressive RCK Sombra, seems to suit this team a lot. We've already seen the impact of someone like Fusions, and while the Lucio of Kellex is still a little shaky, I think the backline of him and God has been pretty solid so far. However, even though it's great that the Uprising are getting creative, we have yet to see a team like this get a lot of success in the league, and especially in this stage, teams with that kind of mentality have been kinda getting wrecked. Still, I see no reason to be counting the Uprising out just yet. We've counted them out enough.
Defeat.
Another 3 and 4 stage for the Chengdu Hunters, but to be fair, they did manage to stay in the positives in map differential, which is actually pretty impressive and probably a sign of good things to come. The biggest development in the Hunters this stage was Yang Xiaolong arriving in LA and playing for this team. The DPS player started off playing in some scenarios when Bacon Jack would be in, and by the end he was playing entire matches, basically replacing Late Young as the team's Zarya and Sombra player, and he's even had some great highlight moments on the McCree. I must say, I've been really impressed with players like Yang Xiaolong and Bacon Jack, both of whom were signed on even though they hadn't played professional Overwatch for a year, after they weren't initially picked up for teams in Season 1. I don't feel like I have to explain why I like the Hunters, because everyone knows it. With everything going on, no matter who they're against, the Hunters will just play their own game and dare you to beat them. Does it make them predictable in the long run? Honestly, yeah. Has Ameng's Wrecking Ball play gotten boring to watch? Nope.
Defeat.
Wow. I mean, wow. I am genuinely shocked. Honestly, with most teams that are doing bad in the Overwatch League, it feels like they have some sort of but factor to them. You know, like the Dragons were 0-40, but they put out some good content about their team, got you to connect with their players, and even signed the first woman. The Justice are bad, but they've made some good promising moves to improve their roster recently. The Outlaws are bad, but they have some of the more prominent personalities in Overwatch with people like Jake and Flame. I'm saying that in the past, Overwatch teams have given you reasons to root for them, even if they're doing bad, and I'm having trouble thinking of that reason for the Mayhem. Their most memorable moment this stage wasn't even because of them. It was during the Gladiators game when the Drizzard Arena was filled with purple and one lone Mayhem fan.
There he is, their fan.
You're not gonna bring in fans if the thing that people remember about you is you have no fans. Sorry, one fan. Which happens to be one more than the number of wins that the Mayhem got this stage. Yeah, that doesn't help either. However, it seems like the Mayhem are making moves to help remedy that in this offseason, trading away a bunch of Tier 2 players of the Valiant for Fate. Most people agree that the tank line is the weakest part of the Mayhem, and while the Valiant aren't too great right now, Fate's experience in Overwatch League and the World Cup is huge, and definitely an improvement over Swan. Another very interesting move that this team made was picking up Byram, a flex support, formerly from NRG. Now, Byram was pretty good in contenders, but I feel like most people agree that Hagapun isn't the problem, or at least isn't the biggest problem, so this is either a depth pick or we don't have the full picture yet. So while it's marvelous to see the Mayhem making moves, and I expect more, the Mayhem have to win literally every game left on their schedule just to have a positive record at the end of it all. Their but moment is coming, but it's not here yet. Sorry, Mayhem fan. Maybe next year is the year.
Defeat.
Well, how the mighty fall. Or, how the mid-tier fall even further. The Charge were a team that I was praising at the end of Stage 1 as a team that was a dark horse to win the whole thing. And this is how you repay me? With a 2-5 stage? Really? Well, honestly, it felt like the Charge's GOATS comp has been figured out at this point. Rio is one of the weaker main tanks in the league, and teams will usually focus on him, or picking off Shu before he can pick off anyone from their team. And from what we've seen so far, it's worked really well. The Charge needed to change something, and they actually did, creating their own unique style of Doomfist GOATs, with Eileen playing the Doomfist. Doomfist is a very boom or bust character. You either carry or feed, and the Charge are putting a lot of trust in Eileen. And honestly, while I love watching Doomfist gameplay, I'm not totally sold on this comp yet. Eileen has had some good moments, but he's also had games where he's basically invisible, and then they swap back to regular GOATs and usually get wrecked. I just don't know if those great moments are worth it. I am all for teams trying new things out when GOATs isn't working. I'm just not quite sure if this is the play. In other news, Nero will finally be old enough to play in Stage 3, and I'm genuinely excited to see why the Charge signed him, especially 6 months before he was eligible.
Defeat.
And the collapse. Listen, Outlaws fans, I hate to say it, but honestly the writing has been on the wall since Season 1. Houston is not a good team. I still genuinely feel like they can be a good team, but they need to find their style right now, and they just aren't. How many times have we seen the team throw in random players at the Zarya, Brig, and Diva roles just to see if it works better? Now, I know I've been preaching change this whole video so far, and isn't that what the Outlaws are doing? And the answer is, not quite. There's changing like the other teams have, and then there's picking your Brig player out of a hat 5 minutes before every game. There's changing with a purpose, and there's throwing everything you can at a wall randomly to see what sticks. There's measured change that breeds improvement, and then there's what the Outlaws have done, which has kept the team in constant confusion, and now they're 0-7. Outlaws, you need a plan. Just figure out what you think is best for your team and stick with it for more than 2 games. Please, this is getting hard to watch.
Defeat.
Well, improvement is improvement, and the Valiant have finally gotten that win on the board. To be honest, the coaching change within the Valiant seems to be working wonders right now. In this stage, the Valiant ended up swapping Kareev out for KSF in the Zarya position, which I honestly agree with. Stop making Kareev swap between roles, I don't think it's good for anyone. We also finally saw Costa retake the starting main support slot, and Cookie took his rightful place on the bench. Cookie, you are a solid backup main tank, but I can't see you getting more than that. With these changes in place, the Valiant were actually able to pull off 3 wins this stage, making them not the worst green team in the league. And going into the second half, there is a lot of things that the Valiant are doing. They've made huge plays, trading Fate for McGravy, Fact Fiction, and Shax, all from the Mayhem. I honestly think this could be a really good trade for the Valiant. First of all, McGravy is a very solid depth piece. I expect him to back up space for now, but he just might see some time on the stage if they keep struggling. I do, however, see really good shot that Shaxx takes the Zarya role from KSF, and I wouldn't complain about that. Shaxx was a great Zarya in NA Contenders and has shown a wide hero pool in the past. I think a lot rides on fact though. Yes, he was great in Contenders, and he even has a little stage experience with the Outlaws in Season 1. But will he be able to fill Fate's shoes? They're pretty big, so I don't know. We'll see. Even if the Valiant aren't making the playoffs this year, they're making some aggressive moves, and I can't wait to see where it lands them.
Defeat.
Paris? I don't know. I feel like you're better than the Outlaws, but worse than the Valiant. By that I mean, the Eternal made a coaching switch in Stage 2 just like the Valiant did, and are kind of playing roster roulette like the Outlaws are, and we're kind of in that situation where it looks good sometimes, but not nearly enough of the time. We've seen all DPS players on this roster get a significant amount of playtime. LH Cloudy and Gray are in for Ben Best and Hip respectively, they've played Goats, DPS, Bunker, and it's just never quite enough. I'm willing to give the Eternal another stage before I give up on them, but it's very tentative. They're in a kind of a best of the worst situation right now. They'll beat bottom table teams, but struggle a lot to even beat mid-table teams. I love the whole Europe Strong brand they're putting out and wanted them to succeed, but I wonder if it affects the team at all knowing that your brand basically puts an entire continent on your back. All I'll say for now is that I hope the Eternal are watching the European talent that'll be on display in the Atlantic Showdown this break, and maybe even make a couple moves based off of it. Both their main team and their academy team could use it.
Defeat.
I can't be too tough on Philly. I mean, having a stage where you face NYXL twice can't be easy. Except the Reign beat the NYXL twice, so basically you suck. I actually don't have much for the Fusion this time around. It was a lot of the same. Same old roster, same old bright points, and same old mistakes. The Fusion have largely been the same, or at the very least improved at a slower rate than most teams, allowing other people to just blow past them. None of their players, in my opinion, are particularly good at Goats, and it shows. In my eyes, the Fusion are a solid mid-table team. They'll beat bad teams, they'll usually beat mid-table teams, but they'll lose to the really good ones. Prove me wrong.
Defeat.
The Dynasty are the one team that I think really got unlucky this stage. I mean, having to play the Titans twice in one stage and still getting within one game of the playoffs is pretty impressive in itself, but the Spark game was one that will probably haunt the Dynasty when they look back, because I think that was winnable. The Dynasty have made some pretty interesting moves this stage, putting Marvel, Fitz, and Toby in starting positions in place of Fissure, Fleta, and Jexay respectively, and the obvious response is, why? The Dynasty did get the semifinals last stage on their old comp, so why change it up? Especially highly skilled players like Fissure, Fleta, and Jexay. Here's the thing, Toby has been great, I think he's been just fine in that Lucio role. Fitz has been alright, I would prefer Fleta, but maybe he just fits the style that the Dynasty want to run better. But I'm having trouble seeing Marvel as a suitable replacement for Fissure right now. He has had on and off games and tends to rely on his teammates a lot more than Fissure did. But maybe that's what the Dynasty want? I don't know, it's tough to justify putting players like this on the permabench, but we'll see how it develops. Hey, maybe they'll end up shaking things up completely again.
Defeat.
I'm37 may have speedran his way to the Overwatch League, but he sure did hit a brick wall when he got there. After Stellar retired in the break between stages, the Defiant must have really seen something in him, but it was obvious that the team's dynamic without Stellar would take some readjusting. Immediately there were issues, chief among them being the inexplicable decision to put I'm37 on Zarya instead of Brig. Ivy was a solid Zarya for them in Stage 1, so they either loved I'm37 Zarya or hated his Brig. This threw off the team dynamic even more than it already had, and the Defiant were a pretty big mess for a couple of weeks. In specific, it felt like Yakpung was getting picked off a lot more. I'd be interested to see if the changes in Brig and Zarya play had anything to do with that. While the Defiant eventually fixed this by putting Ivy back on Zarya, it was just too late. The Defiant need to turn things around for next stage, and quick. Because they've gone from the second tier of teams to the mid tiers, and they're about to fall even lower if they can't adjust in time. If things keep going how they are, the Defiant will be left in the dust.
Defeat.
The Justice are improving, I think. This stage marked the beginning of some pretty aggressive changes on the side of Washington, as they were able to sign Arc from the NYXL and Sleepy from the Shock in order to completely revamp their backline. These are two starting level players who are on the benches of stacked teams, so I'm actually really glad that they're getting onto a team where they can play. The Justice have also shown a lot of promise when they've gotten off of the Goats comps and just let Corey pop off. Like, seriously, this dude is insane when he's not on Zarya, and it makes me really sad that they can't do that as often as they want to. They were able to pull out another win this stage, which keeps them out of the very bottom of the standings, but with just 2 wins total so far, it seems like the season playoff hopes for the Justice are just about over. At this point, I would be planning and acquiring pieces for next season. Honestly, revamp the tank line, maybe grab a Zarya specialist. All of a sudden, this is a pretty decent team. And that'll do it for this debriefing. Which one of these teams do you think has the best chance to make the Stage 3 playoffs? Let me know in the comments. As always, if you liked this video and want to see more, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Notifications on, of course. I make competitive Overwatch content every week, and I would just be so happy if you would take a little bit of time out of your week to watch it. Until next time, though, that's all for me. Don't get tilted.